Hi everyone. Today I thought I share something with you that I have come across on Facebook, and this was actually a post provided by Jake Ernst, who is a registered social worker and psychotherapist in Canada. And I really liked what he offered. I really see this as food for thought, and I thought I'm going to share this with you because I think it is in a way quite straightforward, but maybe you want to think a little bit more about that. So he says when you go swimming in cold water, and you might relate to that, I can, your body will adjust to temperature, right? So, and over time, the water starts to feel less cold because we adapt. But the water actually, think about it, doesn't suddenly get warmer. Your body temperature changes to adapt to the water. And similar to the way we adapt to cold water, we adapt to conditions in our environment, and sometimes we adapt to conditions that aren't good for us. So we become desensitized to the effects. We grow to tolerate too much, actually, really. We may even become numb and unaware of how certain people and places make us feel. So we grow into our surroundings and we naturally adapt to the environment around us. And actually, as human beings, we are built to adapt and survive. And in that, perhaps not to see things for what they actually are. Rightly so, when we know the water is cold, we hesitate to get into. But when it's time to get out of the cold water, the fresh air will also feel like the problem if we found warmth in the cold water. So it's normal to outgrow people. It's normal to outgrow places and relationships. And sometimes we hesitate to get out of the cold water, even when it will be good for us. And I thought I'd share this with you because it is actually really interesting approach and an interesting way to see and look at our experiences, and actually really from a very insightful place, an opportunity to access that inner wisdom that he is actually also talking about. If we translate this, what does this actually mean? Adapting to cold water, as I already said, also in relationship to, of course, others. It really applies to our lives, and it holds some very valuable insights. So when we repeatedly expose ourselves to challenging or unfavorable situations, conditions, our minds and bodies have indeed a remarkable capacity to adapt. And this adaptability is a survival mechanism ingrained in us, all human beings. And however, it is important to consider the potential consequences of this adaptation process. And that importance of considering requires a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness, and insight work. There is truth in the idea that he's mentioning, that we can become desensitized to conditions that are not good for us. Just like our bodies adjust to the cold water, we may become accustomed to negative aspects of our environment or relationships. And this actually indeed can lead to reduced awareness and recognition of how these factors impact our well-being. And we maybe even reach a point where we lack the ability to recognize that certain people and places are detrimental to our emotional well-being and health. I would go a little bit further. This adaptation can give rise to a sense of tolerance for unhealthy situations. And we might convince ourselves in these circumstances, relationships, environments, and places that we can handle more than we actually should, ultimately causing us to sacrifice our well-being that is here at stake. And As humans, we really tend to find comfort in familiarity. And even if that familiarity is an unfavorable environment, even if that is uncomfortable, it is a territory that we know in and out. So this can make it difficult, of course, to recognize when it's time to leave or when it's time to let go. So I really want to make a point here. It is important to notice that recognizing the need for change is normal and healthy. And just as we may hesitate to get out of cold water, even if it will be good for us, we can similarly hesitate to leave behind relationships, places, patterns of behavior that have become far too familiar, far too known. I'm not saying that change is not difficult. It is actually difficult. And the uncertainty of what lies ahead can create resistance. But again, it is this with self-awareness and insight work, you actually see that. And then you can work with that rather than being hindered and having that blind spot that you're actually not really aware of. So it's really essential to foster self-care, to foster self-awareness, and actively reflect on your circumstances, to ensure that you are adapt to environments that promote your well-being, and recognizing when you have outgrown certain people. So ponder a little bit on this and sort of see how this relates to you. It might be not so easy to digest. For some of you, it might be straightforward. For me, it was certainly resonating when I read that, because this is what I come across a lot in my work, and I see the pain and the suffering, and I think I really appreciate and take my hat off for everyone who walks through the door working with me, and really sort of being willing to embrace this and being willing to see something else in there, and to recognize a pattern and to step out of that, what they caught up in. And we all are caught up in something that is far too familiar, because it's in a way so much easier, so much convenient, when everything feels already so challenging and difficult and forceful, and tiring and exhausting. Nevertheless, see how you can engage in this inside work, how you can drop in. And maybe if it's only 1 minute a day, but you want to do a little bit more in-depth work, then 1 minute a day of inside work might not be enough. So if you need some help, let's do this together and explore. This is obviously not something that is resolved and changed overnight. This is something that is an ongoing process and progress. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I hope you're well. Be well, stay well, and goodbye for now.